But that's the world we live in, where they can just print sheets of paper and call it money, and we'll fight to the death. People will fight to the death over these sheets of paper with numbers printed on them. It's completely insane behavior. The more you analyze it, the more insane it actually looks. We dedicate our entire lives to acquiring sheets of paper with numbers on them. And that's, surely life is meant to be about more than that. The irony, the true tragedy of it, in fact, is that the more worthless the US dollar becomes, the more of your life you have to dedicate to acquiring it in order to get by. Like right now, people are already dedicating huge portions of their lives, 50, 60 hours a week, simply to acquiring more of these sheets of paper with numbers printed on them. And the worse the dollar gets, the more time they're going to have to spend doing that. The bigger the dollar is in their minds, and the more of a focus of their existence the dollar becomes, until they're starving to death and they have to earn just a few more dollars to buy their next meal, or their replacement pants for their child, or gasoline to take their kid to school, or whatever. The more worthless the dollar gets, the larger it becomes in our minds. And that's the tragedy of this, because we already are hyper-focused on money and earning money. Like, as a society, we're kind of sick in that way anyway. Americans are obsessed with productivity and making money, and this is the point of your existence, is to make money for billionaires. But even that aside, you have to get out there and make money to pay your bills, to pay your rent. And that is increasingly difficult because of the USD becoming more and more worthless over time.
You know, it's interesting. I feel like the past generations were more obsessed with money than the current generations, but the current generations are really, really good at spending it.
What do you mean by current generations? Because
that's a good
Zoomers
question.
probably don't care that much, but they're also just now really entering the workforce.
I think it's probably it's just become more and more true, like, over the generation. So it isn't like
I think people have become less materialistic. But
really?
I think. Yeah, but I think that's
materialistic.
Yeah, but I think that's because they can afford so much less than their previous people could, and the anti-materialism, the anti-materialist tendencies that we see, especially on TikTok and YouTube and so on, are just defense mechanisms against the fact that, well, yeah, you're never going to own a Mercedes anyway, so of course you're like, I'm not materialist enough to want a Mercedes. Well, yeah, because you'd never own one anyway. You're never going to own a house. You're never going to own a brand new car. So it just becomes a self-defense mechanism to say, I don't want a new car.
It seems to me like we order a lot more cheap junk just as individuals, and especially since like Amazon, right? Like the internet, right? Like the amount of junk that people buy is just skyrocketed by comparison to prior generations, like recent prior generations.
But is that a generational thing, or is that just because our grandparents didn't have Amazon?
Well,
they had Sears catalogs.
But they were much better at saving their money.
Well, their money was easier to save.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, it's not maybe necessarily a generation thing so much as a human thing that has gotten worse over the generations.
603-283-6160. What are your thoughts? Is it generational or is it economic? 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.